Jigging or jig fishing is one of the most popular styles of fishing, whether you're talking freshwater, saltwater, inshore saltwater, offshore saltwater, or here on the beach like we're doing today. In this video, we're going to talk about what jigging is. We'll talk a little bit about the action of a jig. We'll talk about some of the categories of jigs that you can use on the beach. And then we're going to go over some of my favorite jigs to use to catch fish out here on the beach. My name's Tyler at Tight Lines and High Tides, and we're fishing today outside of Patrick Space Force Base in Melbourne, Florida. If you're new to the channel, I'd like to say welcome. If you are a member already and follow along, be sure to say hello in the comments. So the first thing I do whenever I get ready for surf fishing is I make sure that I have my box of jigs. So basically I keep all my jigs for surf fishing in this one small container. I really recommend this tackle box if you don't have one, in this case if you don't have one. It's made by Gamakatsu. You can pick it up, I think, at Tackle Direct. But it's a really nice box that keeps everything nice and organized. And it has these little slots and this foam in the bottom that keeps everything kind of in place. But as for the jigs, what I like to carry is a set of, like I said, my Bucktail Jigs, my normal Jig Heads, and some metal jigs. Kind of looking first at the metal jigs. One of my favorites jigs all around is the Castmaster by Acme Tackle Company. I have another video that's really popular where I'm catching a lot of fish with this lure, and I make sure I always have multiples of the Castmaster by Acme Tackle Company, and I usually carry it anywhere from the 3/4 ounce down to the 1/2 ounce. I find that to be the best size on the beach for catching bluefish or even flounder, pretty much anything, Spanish mackerel, anything that's floating around will usually hit these Castmaster Tackle Company. Another tried and true jig, another type of metal jig that I like to carry is going to be the crocodile spoon. It's just a tried and true spoon. It's very, very normal, or a kind of a standard spoon. You can either get them with the treble hooks, or they actually have the standard J hooks as well. But a great spoon to always have with you. Still going on in the metal jig category, I have a number of casting jigs or epoxy jigs. You know, I've got a couple from like Clark Spoon, some Shimano jigs. Basically, they're really good for casting a long way out and then working them back in, either via a fast retrieve or a kind of retrieve and pause type action. But these casting spoons are really fun to target things like bluefish, Spanish mackerel, jack crevalle, all those type of fish that are running on the beach. So one of my favorite types of metal jigs to use on the beach is a casting jig like this one right here. This one is a chartreuse and white Shimano current sniper. It's in the 1 1/2 ounce size, and I think it's 3 3/8 inches long. These jigs are meant to be cast out a long way and then worked back in. They're really good for targeting fish like Spanish mackerel, bluefish, different type of jack crevalle and stuff like that. A lot of your predatory fish that are hanging out near the beach. The way I like to work these is basically to cast them really far out, as far as I can, and then I'll either do a quick retrieve back in to let it sort of swim through the water, or I will pause every once in a while and kind of like bring it up in the middle of the water column, and then I'll let it drop down to the bottom. And when it drops down, the shape of this jig will kind of flutter as it goes down, and it'll attract some of those predatory fish. So like I said, the casting jigs, another good brand is Clark Spoon. Clark Spoon has a whole line of casting jigs that you can get on their website. Really effective and really fun to use. You can cast these things a really long way out, and they're just fun to work back in. So what I'm going to do with the Shimano casting jig is, first off, I'm just going to toss it as far as I can out into the beach. You can see it goes a really long ways. And then what I'm going to do is, one of my preferred ways of doing it is I'm going to bump it across the bottom. So I've got a pretty decent retrieve, and then I bump it up and let it fall back down. And what I'm trying to go after are predatory fish that are just hanging out on the beach to see if they can see it and bite it. And if I do get a bite, I'm just going to set the hook really hard. What I'm doing is just bumping it, reeling and retrieving it, but I'm always got a retrieve. I always have a retrieve, bumping it and letting it fall back to the bottom. All right, once I get it all the way back in, pretty easy, I'll just do it again. There we go. All right, let's see what we got. Sometimes you can work it a little bit faster, like this time I'll go a little bit faster in order to see if maybe those fish are a little bit more active and are going to chase something that's moving faster through the water column. But that's the kind of nice thing about these particular jigs, is they're really versatile in the way you can fish them. You can do just a quick retrieve, or you can bump them along the bottom, or you could even pause them and let them fall down to the bottom, like bigger pauses and let them fall down. Also, if you're trying to target things like pompano, these goofy jigs are really cool. They basically sink down to the bottom and they kind of hit the sand, and it puffs up the sand and it attracts things like pompano that are looking for burrowing crustaceans. The next thing is going to be your bucktail jigs. I usually use the Spro bucktail jigs, and I'm usually carrying these in either the half ounce, 3/4 ounce, or 1 ounce variations, kind of depending on the surf conditions and the wind conditions and how far I want to cast it out there. Will depend on what size bucktail jig I want to use. As far as colors go with the bucktail jigs, I find that like reds and whites do the best, plain whites, and then chartreuses have always done really good for me. There's a ton of color combinations out there, and some people say color doesn't really matter, but you know, whatever makes you happy, I guess. But I like the whites, pinks, and chartreuses. And then finally, I always make sure to carry around a jig head that I can tie on with some sort of grub. BNC makes really good jig heads, DOA, Z-Man makes really good jig heads. There's a ton of jig heads that are jig head brands that are out there. They all do really good. They make good quality product, but you know, I always make sure to have at least one of these types of jigs with me. All right, that about wraps it up for the video today. I hope you got value out of this video, and if you did, be sure to hit that like button and drop us a comment and tell us what you thought. And until next time, tight lines, y'all. Cast back, cast back, cast back, shoot. Rookie mistake.